Welcome to the tip channel. That is perfection. We're at the start of week 3 on our basement bath project. We're not actually a full 2 weeks in. We're at about 53 hours so far. We're getting ready to do our floor ceramic, and we were originally going to use a tile that was 12 by 24. And checking the floor of the bathroom, we can see that it's very uneven. So what I'm afraid of is a couple of things. Number one is we're going to end up with a lip between tiles, or in the future, naturally, one of these tiles can break. So instead of the 12 by 24, we're going to switch out to the 12 by 12. Now again, I've done a center line on my room, and what I'm going to do is to work that way first. And naturally I can reach all the way over to there. Then I'll turn around, come from here, and work my way out towards the doorway. We have completed our flooring in our bath project. You'll notice we've used 1/4-inch grout spacers, which does keep them fairly close to being accurate. But again, you need to cheat occasionally because of the out of squareness of a tile. We did have to use a little extra mud in some locations to get things fairly level. One thing that I do want to mention to you is along the wall lines, you'll see that my grout joint is a lot tighter than what the center of my floor is. The floor I've used 1/4 inch. I went to about 1/8 of an inch along the edge. The reason for that is anytime that you come across and you hit the floor versus the wall, this is a problem area. The reason being is your floor and wall is expanding and contracting at different rates. So they make a caulking that matches the grout, and you want to use that in that location there. Also, an inside corner. Again, these two walls coming together is a problem area. Again, your two walls will expand and contract at different rates. So again, that's an area that you want to use caulking, is right down through that corner. Now, we were able to go a little thicker in some areas with our thin set in order to make up for the unevenness of the floor. Naturally, going with a smaller floor tile was a lot more forgiving on those areas. So I don't think we'll ever have any issues with any cracking or the grout popping. If the floor was worse than that, they do make a product which is called a floor leveler. And I'll try to put that in the video so you see what I'm talking about. This product's actually a little weird. It's like a concrete base, and you mix it up very, very thin, and you pour it out, and it automatically finds level. So if the floor was really bad, I would have used the floor leveler, which would have leveled everything out and gave us a nice smooth surface to work with. I thought I'd take a minute and share a couple of things with you in regards to cutting tile with the wet saw. Now, in this particular piece, we need to have a U shape out of that. Now, we're dealing with a round saw blade, so you can see that I don't want to go past that, because if I go past, I'm going to see the cut. Now, my scenario is, as you can see, I've got about 1/2 inch left on the back side that still needs to be cut. So what do? I don't want to go any further on the inside. So what I'll do is I'll flip this towel over, and I'll go ahead and cut the back side. Now, on the rear side, I can overcut because naturally it's not seen on the face of the tile. And I've got just a little bit left in the corner, so I'll go ahead and clean that up with my saw blade. And there we are. One other thing in regards to your saw. Now, especially if you get one from the rental place. If you're finding that it's difficult to cut the tile, it shouldn't be. What may be happening is that the saw is made so that the water comes up and squirts on the blade. What you might find is that the little jets that squirt the water on the blade might be plugged. So you might want to take a few minutes, unplug those, make sure you're getting good water on the blade. Now, the second thing is when you're dealing with porcelain tile, you will occasionally get a porcelain buildup on the blade. To remove that, just take a whetstone and turn your saw on. Porcelain's gone. We're getting ready to grout our floor, and as I mentioned in one of the last videos, is that along the perimeter of the floor we're going to use a caulking. Now, this is made by the same manufacturer as the grout, and it is made to match the grout. Most of the times you get a fairly good match whenever you get it this way. Now, first of all is how to cut the tube, your caulking tube. Basically, we want to be at an angle, and I'm going to do about the same size as what my caulking joint is going to be. So, as you can see, I cut that on an angle, and then what I do is I take off that little tip right there. And it just sort of flattens it out a little bit. Now, the matching grout caulking used to come in a latex, which you would use water for cleanup and smoothing out. Nowadays, everything is switching to silicone, which does make it a lot more durable, a lot more mold resistant, but working with naturally is a little more difficult. So a few things you're going to need is naturally a roll of paper towels. You're going to need some paint thinner and naturally your caulking gun. Now, what I normally do is this, is that I take one of my half towels and I fold it up and I soak that with my paint thinner. I normally work on about a 3-foot section at a time. So go ahead and put our bead of caulking down in there. Okay, now what I do is I take my finger and get the paint thinner on my finger, and what we're doing is wiping up the excess with our finger. Sorry. This is pushing the caulking down into the joint where we need it, and it's also taking the excess off. So constantly wetting your fingers, wiping the excess off on the paper towel. And we are just about there. Now we take our paper towel and give it a final wipe over. We're getting ready to start our floor grout. In regards to the mixing of the grout, about exactly the same as what we did for the thin set. A little bit of water in the bottom of the bucket to get it started, and then mix it up. Continue to pour additional water in until you get to right to that mixture that works well. What we're looking for is toothpaste, peanut butter. For you lady do-it-yourselfers, about the same as cake icing. Now, In regards to putting the grout down, it's not so much about how you put it down, it's more about how you clean it up. Now, basically what you do in regards to putting it down, you're going to need a float and something naturally to dip the grout out. Put the grout there, and what you want to do is go at a diagonal. Now, going at a diagonal, what you're doing is not getting straight down into the joint, so that works very, very well. But what you're doing at this point is you're working it down into the joint, so you're not worried about getting everything totally perfect in regards to cleaning everything up, because that will be the next step where we actually start to clean things up with water and a sponge. As you can see, we have our grout applied. Now, at this point, it looks like we have a big mess going on. Why the home shows don't show this, I don't know. One thing before I forget though, is that some of the manufacturers of the grout have come up with a quick dry grout. And when you first think about it, oh great, this will take no time at all to get it done. Don't buy it. It's a nightmare to work with. It dries too fast. The stage that we're at now is we want to take a bulk of this mess up with the first wiping. We'll be going over this floor probably about 3 times with a sponge, each time naturally changing our water, cleaning out our sponge. That will finish it up for the day, and then tomorrow there will be a slight haze on the floor. Now don't get excited. The haze is to be expected. Just take a terry cloth towel and you wipe it right out. But basically this process, you use a sponge, and again, these sponges are available where you buy your ceramic supplies, and you want to go across on a diagonal, wiping everything up. Again, you don't want to wipe right down the groove of the towel. If you see that one needs addressed though, naturally you can come down across it. But basically what we're after is we'll get up the major mess, and then as I mentioned, as it dries a little further, we'll continue to do this as well. Now, in regards to a bathroom floor, by the time I get it grouted, it's about ready for me to come back and start the wiping process. If you were doing like a bedroom or something, which would be twice this size, would be nice to have a person helping you, because as you get about halfway through the floor, you want to start wiping up. We just finished our first wipe down of the floor. Now, we're not after to get this floor totally clean. At this point, those grout joints are still wet, so as you go across that grout joint, you're bringing the material back on top, creating a haze. So we're not after a total clean floor at this point. We're going to let the grout joint set up for about 45 minutes or so, and then we'll hit this floor again. We're now ready to start our second wipe down. As you can see, the floor has dried to a haze, and the grout joints are set up a good bit now, so we won't be doing as much tracking across the tile. So basically, we've got new water, sponges rinsed out, we're ready to go. And keep in mind, same thing as a thin set, this is a concrete product, so get the stuff off of your hands, number one, and number two, some hand cream, because it will dry out your hands. This is September 2023. I just read on MSN that Home Depot and Lowe's are complaining because their third quarter sales are down. They're spending all type of money for company executives, for analysts to figure out what they need to do. I could solve the problem in 2 words: price gouging. During the pandemic, everything in the lumberyard shot up 3-fold. Now we're, what, 2.5 years into the pandemic? And they're still wanting double the price for the product that we bought before pandemic. A 2-inch plastic elbow, $5, was $2 before pandemic. Our project, we need 3 outside corners. Lowe's and Home Depot want $29 for an outside corner. Now, I'm not talking about oak or cherry or walnut. This is pine. $29 for an outside corner. They've lost their mind. Anyways, we're going to make those 2 outside corners that we need out of this 10-foot 2x4. This costs $6. It'll take us about 15 minutes. Job will be done. I'll get down off my soapbox now. Our 2x4 is already 1.5 inches thick. So what I'm going to do on my outside corner is I'm just going to make it 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. So what we're going to do is set our fence at 1.5 inches. And we'll do 2 rips out of this 2x4. Two before ripped down to 1.5 inches. And a 2x4 comes with a rounded corner on each corner. But what we need is we need a third rounded corner. And then we'll make our notch out for the wall. So, got my router bed set up with a round over, and I'm going to create that third round corner. This is my last square corner. So naturally what I need in order to make an outside corner is I need this chunk to get out of here. So what I've done is I've set my saw blade up 1 inch. So basically what we're looking at is that will come up to this point right here, and then I'll make a second cut to take that piece out. So what I'm going to do first is I'll set my fence at 1/2 inch. So what I did basically was 2 cuts, inch deep, 1/2 inch off the fence, and I created the outside corner molding. Now, our ceiling height in our project is over 8 foot. We're almost 9 feet. So we would have had to buy 3 outside corners at $29 a piece. That's almost 90 bucks. I've got $6 in a 2x4 and 15 minutes of time. and they wonder how come their cells are down. This is the next day after we grouted our ceramic, and as I mentioned to you in the last video, we're going to have some haze, and basically we'll take a old terry cloth towel and we'll just simply wipe that haze right up. We're getting ready to do our molding around the ceiling, and this is actually cherry. I've just shot it clear. Cherry is a beautiful wood, and we're keeping it very simple. I don't want it to fight with the rustic look that we have on the ceiling. That's why we're not using like a crown molding or something like that. This is just cherry. I planed it down to 3/8 of an inch and just did a very simple round over on the edge of it. Now, we took the time to square our room whenever we did our framing. So at this point, it makes it very simplistic, where our walls are at 90 degrees to each other. So what we're looking at on our miter saw is a 45-degree angle cut. We'll set it at 45 degrees whenever we put two pieces together. Naturally, that makes our 90-degree angle that we have in the corner. We got our piece of cherry cut, and actually we'll be putting that up with a pin tacker. Now, cherry is a beautiful wood, but it is one of the woods that's most sensitive to light. If I plane and sand a piece of cherry out and I put it out in the sunlight for about a week, you'll see that it'll drop down about 2 shades in color. So it's one of the woods that very quickly darkens versus your other hardwoods. It may take 6 months to a year to go down just those couple of steps in color. Now, as we go to put up our crown molding, you'll notice that my saw cut is a lot lighter than what the face of my board is. So what will happen is, if I have the smallest crack in between of my miter cuts, it's going to be magnified by the fact that this color is different. So, a little tip. Now, these are markers made by Mohawk, and I have them in a lot of different colors. Now, see, I'm a cabinet guy, so I need to have these. Now, if you stained your piece of wood, you can actually use stain on the edge as well. But what I've done is that I've chosen a marker that is very close to the color of my wood. And what I'll do is what we refer to as coloring the miter. Don't know if that's an actual term or not, but it's my term. Now, what I've done is add color to the miter. So by putting the color on there, naturally if I have a minute gap, you're not even going to see it. Another tip is, if you end up with a small gap that you can see, they also make these little jars of putty. Now, they're available a lot of different places. You can pick it up at the lumber yard, you can pick it up at Sherwin-Williams. But basically, it's a nice little final touch if you got just a little bit of a gap and you want to touch it up. Or if you're shooting an 18 gauge instead of a pin tacker, you're going to need something to fill those holes up. So you want to choose a color very close to your board and sort of blend it in. Now, if the color's off just a little bit, what you can also do is use a lighter putty and then take your touch-up marker and touch the putty up. So just a couple little tips to make the job look fantastic when you're done. We have our first piece of cherry up. Now, we know that our room is square because we built it. But keep in mind, this is a rather large piece of trim, and because of drywall mud, we can naturally have a difference in the miter. So here's my cutoff piece for my first piece. And what I've done is I went ahead and cut my angle on it. Now, I can test my miter at this point, and I can see that the piece of molding I already have up is tilted out just a little bit. Basically, we're looking at about a 64th of an inch. Not a whole lot, but because I know this now, I can adjust my miter saw to make that 30-second, I want this corner to be as perfect as possible. This one and this one are my primary corners. I'll work my way back to that wall. If I have if I'm off a little bit on that last wall, it won't be as noticeable as these primary walls. A few more tips in regards to running your molding, and I am fussy about my moldings, but a couple of things. Number one is the old rule of thumb: measure twice, cut once. That's natural. Now, I actually measure a third time. What I'm talking about is, first of all, whenever you're measuring your piece and marking it, I like to use a 5mm pencil. Now, the 5mm lead pencil puts a very small mark. Also, as you measure and mark, after you mark it, look at your mark. In other words, you may say, okay, in order to be to exact dimension that I'm looking for, I need to take the line, I need to leave the line, I need to split the line. I know 5mm and splitting a line, taking a line doesn't mean a lot, but I like to be as precision as possible. Now, the second thing is, after you cut your piece, double check your dimension. You may be a 32nd or 64th of an inch strong, and go ahead and take that off now. Things are finally starting to come together on our project, and we're getting ready to set our urinal. So our first step with this is a urinal flange. Now, they make this in several different varieties. This particular one slips inside of a 2-inch pipe. They also make one that fits inside of a 2-inch fitting. They also make a third one which actually spins onto a 2-inch mill. So a couple different options there. But basically what we've done is that I went ahead, put my small piece inside of my elbow, and then I've dry fitted. What I mean by that is I went ahead and set this up. I've leveled my bolts so that I know whenever I glue this into place, I've got it dead on where I need it to be. Now, I also took and did a center line up, and excuse me, this urinal has a bracket with it. Now, we'll be mounting that bracket to the wall, and I'll first use this slotted area. Naturally, I'm going to have to use a hammer drill to get through. We know we have blocker in back already applied. So I'll use the adjustable one first in case the urinal needs to go up and down a little bit. Once I get it into actual place, and I'll put the 2 permanent holes in. Now, we've got our urinal hung, and just a couple tips as you do this. What I did was continue my center line on up from the pipe, so I knew where the center of the top of my urinal needed to be. I also put a center line on the urinal itself on the bottom and continued my line down so that everything lined up. I did put this up with 3-inch lag bolts. Don't want any issues. Naturally, everything's hanging on that bracket. The bottom plastic piece, if you will, just is simply holding the bottom in place and holding the gasket tight to the urinal. So there's a couple little tips. If you put your marks on there, that helps. I also put a line up measuring the inside of the ceramic to where it hooks over the hook so that I knew how high I needed to be before I dropped down into place. This unit is by Kohler, and they told me 17.5 inches off the floor to the drain and 30 inches to the center line of the lag bolts that go into the ceramic towel. Now, I did use an impact to run the lags in, but naturally the last little piece, I used a wrench. I mean, I don't want that ceramic guy getting mad at me. He's a big guy. Now, on your plumbing, you can pretty much rule out any problems that you're going to have with your PEX fittings and shark bites. They're pretty much leak proof. Now, where you may have an issue is where you go into threaded fittings. A while back, I was putting in this fancy shower body. It had all type of jets and a head unit and the whole 9 yards, but it was an import, and I was having a heck of a time trying to get the threaded fitting to stop leaking. I tried everything. I tried Teflon tape, I tried the Teflon paste, and I was throwing my hands up. So I'm going to go to the plumbing store. So I went to the plumbing store. There was an old man behind the counter, and I said, I got this shower valve. I said, it's an import. And I says, I've got this threaded fitting and I just can't get it to seal up. I said, I've tried Teflon paste, I've tried Teflon tape, it just won't seal up. He, whoa, whoa, whoa. I have the answer for you, he said. And I'm like, okay. And he handed me this. And I'm like, what? This is just Teflon tape. He said, no, this is the Blue Monster. Now, I've kept this in my plumbing bag ever since. If I have an issue with a threaded fitting, this is my go-to. Now, I don't know whether you'll be able to pick that up. It's been in my bag a while. I will try to find it on the net and post it. But Blue Monster, if you're having a problem with threaded fittings. We're getting ready to start our toilet installation. And a very good friend of mine told me about these new wax rings. Now, in the past, I've always doubled wax ring. I get the jumbo, put it down, I put another wax ring on top of that. So that when I squish that toilet down, I end up with a nice good seal. But he does have a good point. The problem with using a wax ring is that if the commode jiggles at all, then naturally your wax is compressing and you're losing your seal. So these new wax rings are actually made out of foam, and they're pretty interchangeable. Now, he used a brand called Quirky. And I've always been a fan of Fluid Master. Fluid Master has been around forever. So just to be fair, I thought I would buy both and compare. And they're almost identical. Now, basically the way that these work is this, is that if your flange is either flush with the floor or sticking up about 1/4 of an inch, you would use just this one piece and put it down. Now, if your commode flange, like us, we've got our ceramic towel, so we're going to be down 1/4 of an inch. Then you use this one first, and that takes up that 1/4, and you put this one on top of it. So again, that foam is going to give and then stretch right back, so always going to keep a seal. So I do like this invention. And even if you're deeper, let's just say, for instance, you're looking at an old bathroom that you may have put a new subfloor over top of the floor, and the situation is that you might be down like 1/2 inch. You can actually buy another one of these kits and stick it on top of each other. As I mentioned, the two are almost identical. They come with the one flange piece and the foams, so very, very similar. Only because I've used Fluid Master forever, I'm going to go ahead and use this one for our install. Now, before I start the install of the commode, I'm doing what's called a dry fit. I want to see how this thing's fitting, and normally I always put my base on first, and then I'll bolt everything up together. It's a whole lot easier to grab a hold of and position without the tank being on the toilet. Now, here's one of the things that I was pointing out about using the new type of flange. Now, we can see that this toilet is rocking. So naturally, that rocking motion would kill a wax ring if it wasn't, if someone didn't install the commode correctly. Now, what do we do in this type of case scenario? Now, we had a concrete floor. We knew it was off, so we have that issue. Now, you can have a totally perfect floor, and still the porcelain on the commode will be off, and you'll get this rocking effect. So, it's not a perfect world. I actually put a commode in once and wasn't working properly. Tore the commode back apart, and I found a candy wrapper with Chinese writing on the inside. So it's not a perfect world, but anyways, we try to make it as perfect as possible. So in this particular case, this is rocking. So what do? We're going to use what's called a commode shim. What is a commode shim? The commode shim is just basically a plastic spacer, and I will push it in to a point that it's tight on the commode. I'll mark it, cut it with my multi-tool, and then slide it back in again, and that'll take care of the rocking motion of the toilet. We are getting ready to set our vanity, and before I did, I thought I'd take a minute to show you the quality of this cabinet. Now, we're looking at rusty hickory with all the knots and what have you left in. In the old days, That's the part we would have tossed or it would have been cheap. Now you pay extra for that. The construction of the cabinet, as you can see, plywood sides, plywood backs, plywood bottoms. You're not going to find this quality at the lumber yard. This cabinet was made by That Is Perfection. Best of the best. We're getting ready to drill the back of the cabinet for our plumbing coming out of the wall. Now, we could take our measurements and deduct for the floor of the cabinet, make our marks on the inside. I do prefer to instead just put the marks right on the back of my cabinet, measuring from the floor up. Now, the problem with doing that is we're using a hole saw. So, using a hole saw, if we come through the cabinet, what's going to happen is we're going to blow up the inside of the plywood on the interior of the cabinet. We don't want that. So what I'll do is I'll actually take the center tip of the drill and drill through the cabinet till I see this coming out. Then I'll turn the drill around on the inside of the cabinet and drill out the back. That'll save that blowout that I'm talking about. We're getting ready to set our door this morning, and I don't know who put the staircase in, but he only left me 28 inches down here at the bottom to work with to get this door in. Okay, it was me, but I was a lot younger back then.
Boy, the way Glenn Miller played
songs that made the hit parade.
guys like us, we had it made. Those were the days.
Now, I do know my doorway is going to be into the bottom step. So what I've done is to round that corner off so that somebody coming out of the bathroom is not going to catch their toes on that. Now, a few other issues that we have is that I have my laser set up. This is my hinge side, and as you can see, I'm running about 3/8 of an inch out of level on the hinge side. Also, we did ceramic tile, so what I'm going to need to do is to keep my jamb held out even with the ceramic tile. The last issue that we have is that I would like this to look good whenever we get done and be able to see a full piece of trim on this side. Now you can see that the problem is this jamb is out further than what our wall is, so I'll build up my wall in behind of my casing so that I can get a piece of casing coming down this side and make it look nice from the outside. Now the inside, it is what it is. We just have to deal with it. All right, in preparation of our door, what I determined was that the ceramic tile on this side sticks out approximately 1 inch from the stud. So what I did is I went to this side, and as you can see, I stepped out 1 inch on the stud. I shot my laser from the bottom to the top, and I have a nice level line, and that will actually be the inside of my jamb. And then I located where my hinges were on my door jamb, and I've set my laser in this direction, and as you can see, what I've done is to build out right where the hinges are located. And we started out at the bottom with 3/4. Our middle is about 15/16, and the top is about 1/8 of an inch. We've secured these with like 6 drywall screws, and what I'll be doing is taking the screws out of the hinges and going right into the blockings. We have our door jamb secured to the wall with 2.5 inch drywall screws in the hinge area, so they're not noticeable, but we've really got that secured well. Now we took the time to level it in both directions, so this door is not going to want to travel in by itself or travel closed by itself. It's going to operate properly. Now let me ask you, isn't that a gorgeous door? Now that's not a stain on that door. That's actually walnut. If you were to go buy this door, you'd be probably looking at $900 to $1,000. My client, believe it or not, found this at a liquidators and picked it up for a couple $100. I know, a little overkill for a basement bath, but isn't that gorgeous? Now, there's a few minor defects in the door, not bad. The manufacturer did do a nice job of touching those up. I think the reason that it got returned was because the door's walnut and the jamb was made in oak. So naturally it didn't match the door. Now I did put a dark wood stain on the jamb, which goes very nicely with the door. And if you're not a wood person, I don't even think you'll pick up on that. And we do have one gorgeous door. Now, I went ahead and hung the door on the jamb. So at this point, we're dry fitting, and what that means is I'm now going to go on the inside and see what I need to do to the jamb to make it work properly with the door. Now, this has been into storage, so the door might be a little warped, so we can manipulate the jamb a little bit in order to work well with the door. So that's our next step. I'm going to take you on the inside. Now, here we are on the inside, and we can say the inside looks great, but as you can see, our reveal at the top of the door is that we have a normal reveal on the hinge side. However, whenever we come over to the other side, we're tight. So we can see that the floor is out of level, and we need to actually shim this side of the door up. So we will be doing that. Now, I will be able to take my time and shim down along this side of the door and pull this frame over to where we have a nice gap in between the frame and the door. At the same time that I do that, I will also be checking and seeing how the door is working with the edge hitting the stop. And if I need to, I will adjust that accordingly as well. So that's our next tip. Now, as we can see, we're going to need to recess this lock set in. So what I've done is I've placed it into position. I've got a pencil line around it. And then I've taken my router and I've set the depth of my blade to the depth of the lock set. Now, while we're looking at this latch of the lock set, keeping in mind that there's two different back sets on a doorknob. There's a 2 3/8 and then there's a 2 3/4. So most manufacturers make the latch so that it will work with either lock set. And this particular manufacturer, you just push down on this, slide it over and go up, and you're set up for the 2 3/4. So if you need to change it with this lock set, that's how you do it. Okay, we have our latch set up in the door. And just a little tip, what I normally do is I'm routering, keeping in mind you're freehanding. So it is better to stay about 1/8 of an inch away from your line, cut out the middle, and then go around and do a touch-up. Naturally, if you hit it with a marker, it covers any small defects that you may have. Now, what we need to do next is to transfer this so that we can mount our strike plate. Now, what we want to do in regards to lining up the strike plate is that we want to go and put our latch against the frame and mark a center line for the latch. Now, the next thing that we want to do is we want to take our rule and we want to measure back from the stop strip. Now, we can see we're about 15/16 of an inch back to the we are about 15/16 of an inch back to the latch. So we'll measure that out from our stop strip and put a mark at 15/16. So we have our center line and our 15/16 mark. So as you can see, the piece of metal that the strike plate will stop the latch set is right there at the 15/16 mark, and it's right center line of the latch. So now we'll mark the perimeter of this and go ahead and router this into the jamb. Now, once you get your strike plate set and you're just a little sloppy coming out to the stop, and you want to tighten that up a little bit, if you notice there is a little slot right in the piece. You simply take a flat screwdriver, stick it in there, bend that out, and it'll take out that slot. We just completed the trim around our door, and fortunately I had some walnut in my shop, so I went ahead, planed it down, sanded it, and shot it clear to match the door. Now, basically we kept it very simplistic. We just did little round over edges on the edges of the board, just enough to break the edge. And we went for that old world rustic look with the top board overhanging on a slight angle. I think it pulls together with everything we have going on in the bathroom with the rustic ceiling. Now, as you're doing your trim, what you want to do is you always want to do a reveal. And what I'm talking about is that if you notice where I put my extension jamb, I've got it back about 1/8 of an inch from the front edge of the board. Now, the reason for the reveal is if you hold two pieces of wood and put them together, try to hold them flush, you'll always end up with a terrible seam. And then naturally, as I did my casing as well around the door, I also did 1/8 of an inch reveal on it. Just gives you a much cleaner look. Like it says, when you try to line two things up flush, you'll end up with something terrible. But with that little bit of reveal, it makes it so nice. Final walkthrough. Found a walnut door at a liquidator's. Trim was by That Is Perfection. Lock set was a quick set. The wall tile is by Maserati. Floor tile was by American Olean. Grout was by Maypie. Toilet is by Glacier Bay. Urinal is by Kohler. Flush valve is by China. Hickory cabinet by That Is Perfection. Delta faucet. Mirror and light was bought at Lowe's. Ceiling was also furnished and finished by That Is Perfection. We're at the end of our basement bath project. I hope my clients enjoyed as much as I did making it for them. The exterior is yet to be finished. The client is going to put a clear coat on this, and don't worry, he has experience. He cleared all of the rough cut lumber that I put up for him on the pavilion. Nice job. So he'll be able to take care of that, not a problem. We are at our third week. The end of that, we're a little over 80 hours. Our crew consists of one old man, tired old man. I hope that you did enjoy our project. If you did, please like and subscribe. How did our project turn out? How else? This is the tip channel. That is perfection. Have a great day.